Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. For the first time in 20 years, America does not have a military presence in Afghanistan. As many of you know, I spent the last week and a half overseas as part of the Save Our Allies coalition, helping get American citizens, green card holders, SIV applicants, women, Christians, and orphans out of Afghanistan. I posted an hour and 10-minute interview the boys made me knock out the second I got off the plane yesterday, so I don't want to rehash all of it. I will say with pride that the 12 guys that were part of our team were able to get 12,000 people out of the country using aircraft given to us by our partner nation, as well as 3 charter planes. We were responsible for 10% of all evacuations out of the country, and the superhuman effort by all involved is one of the most hardcore and dedicated events I've ever witnessed. It was rough on the ground. The desperation was like nothing any of us had ever seen. I have so much love and admiration for the troops that served at those gates. They had to play God, deciding who got in and who didn't, knowing that those who didn't could face an untimely and brutal death. As the days went on, we became hopeful that we had met the end of U.S. casualties until the bomb went off. We lost 13 Americans, all in their early 20s or teens. Another 15 are still in the hospital, many in critical condition. And for a few days, everyone appeared to care. The stories of those we have lost have covered the news. Everyone suddenly had an opinion about Afghanistan. Politics reigned supreme. Hot takes have been written by every writer that touches the military or political space, and many more that are new to the topic. But where's everyone been? Where have the politicians been for the last 2 decades, just letting this war happen indefinitely with no end in sight and no vision for victory? Where was the congressional oversight? Where's the news been? Yeah, there's been coverage, but none of it prime time. Thousands of troops have been killed. 10 times the Afghans have been killed. And we've written it off to the cost of war. You know, that war that Congress hasn't really been paying any attention to. Where have the people been? Arguing about nonsense, gaslighting each other, making every minor disagreement about policy sound like the end of the world, but mostly just ignoring it. Just being comfortable sending a new fresh batch of 19-year-olds into the war. You know, the one that you haven't noticed much, that the news barely covers, and that Congress hasn't really been paying any attention to. When we aren't reminded, when we don't pay attention, when we don't see, it's easy to lose empathy. The cold comments that I'd gotten used to before heading on this trip cut harder after coming back. Because I had forgotten too. I forgot how much we ask of these kids. And I'm calling them kids because I have a kid the same age as all these troops that were killed. And my kid is 1 year away from his commission. And I want someone to care if we send him to war. And I want the media to care about where he is sent and what he is doing. And I want you all to care about his life. A lot of people are talking about who's to blame for this tragic loss. Biden's withdrawal, Bush's Iraq war, Obama's drone strikes and loss of moral authority, Trump's bad deal. Yes, check, all of the above. But Congress didn't care. Neither party moved to solve this problem. Military leadership lied. They spoke in OER bullets instead of reality. But most of all, we, the American people, did not demand oversight, did not demand a plan, did not demand that the conditions were set for victory. And in doing so, we, not anyone else, got a lot of young men and women killed. 20-year-olds that would never know marriage or children, that would never have post-military careers, that would never know peace. We rightly talk about the hate the Taliban bring, their intolerance, their propensity for violence. But there's something worse than hate. Indifference. Our kids died, first and foremost, because we were too lazy to care. I never want to see that happen again.
Stop me if you've heard this one. 2 special tactics officers and an Islamic terrorist walk into a grocery store. Well, it's no joke and the punchline sucks, but this actually happened this week in Auckland, New Zealand. Authorities say a Sri Lankan national had been under surveillance not because he had done anything wrong, but because they were certain he would. Turns out they were right. The ISIS-inspired Sri Lankan was tailed to the grocery store as he had been many times before by the New Zealand police surveillance team and a specialist tactics group. He reportedly showed no signs of having intentions outside of the usual shopping list. 2 agents followed him into the store and kept their distance to observe. While in the store, the man grabbed one of the knives from the knife aisle, was heard shouting Allahu Akbar, and started stabbing everyone in sight. People scattered, but he was able to injure 6 shoppers, 3 of which are in critical condition. The agents closed on the man with weapons drawn, and Sri Lanka decided today was the day, so he charged the officers, who obliged him with 10 rounds of extreme prejudice. They say your life flashes before your eyes before you die, but I have to imagine that the only thing that flashed before this guy's eyes, besides the burning of powder, was abject failure. Well done, Zealanders.
The Irish Data Protection Commission is fining the Facebook-run app WhatsApp €225 million for breaching the EU's policy on sharing users' data with other Facebook companies. The penalty is the second biggest issued in the EU, falling just short of one dished out to Amazon back in July by Luxembourg to the tune of €746 million for data protection violations. A statement made by WhatsApp stated that the ruling was unfair and the penalty disproportionate. I'm sure we'll all shed a tear for the beloved What's book and their monies.
If you've followed BNN for any length of time, you can harken back to the report we did on a man who decided to sue his parents after they threw out his extensive porn stash. No, not the sultry, seductive 70s porn mustache, but cold, sticky stacks of consumer product porn videos and magazines. 43-year-old David Working was living with his parents just months after a divorce when he returned to find his sizable cash had been regulated to les ordures. When he inquired as to its whereabouts, Working's father sent him an email saying, "Frankly, David, I did you a big favor by getting rid of all this stuff." While the majority of us would probably agree with Dad, a Western Michigan court did not. Instead, a judge ordered that the parents had to pay David the appraised sum of the porn value plus damages totaling to $30,000 plus $441. Plus, they have to pay David's legal fees of $14,500 for a sex-laden grand total of $44,941. I don't know how many cubic feet of porn that can buy, but David, I'm sure it's substantial. I also don't know how one actually measures porn. Is it square footage, total duration, words per pornage, miles per porn, cubic volume of pornula? Yeah, I totally get it now. Way too complicated. Just pay the man.
In what you would think was a script from a movie, a gang of bank robbers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, hit a series of banks, set off explosives, and strapped human shields to their getaway vehicles. It all went down in the city of Aracatuba, located in the southeastern state of Sao Paulo, on Monday. The robbers initiated a series of explosions throughout the city in order to distract police. One man was seriously injured in the blasts. With the fuzz frantically trying to address the bombings, the robbers rolled on 3 banks, taking hostages along the way. Police mobilized some 380 officers to stop the bank robbers. During the ordeal, 2 hostages were killed and 1 alleged bank robber died. It is reported that 2 of the robbers were arrested, while at least 15 are still at large. Police are conducting a massive manhunt to find the remaining suspects. Officers stated that they believe that the bank robbers had inside information on which banks were carrying large sums of money. They apparently used drones to monitor their escape routes. It is currently unclear just how much money they took off the banks. Now, I'm not a Brazilian detective, but I do have a hunch. My guess? They should check out the beaches for a bunch of adrenaline junkie surfers who also like skydiving. But I've been wrong once before. The 3 other officers involved in the death of George Floyd, Thomas Lane Quang and Tao Thao, have requested that the proceedings of their trial next month not be live streamed. This is a 180 from their request prior to Derek Chauvin's trial that the proceedings be broadcast for all to see. But following Chauvin's conviction, the trio have changed course, insisting that some witnesses won't testify for fear of facing harassment at their jobs and by the public, but reminded everyone to like and subscribe if they liked their content. Previously, the courts would not have allowed cameras to be in the courtroom, but with COVID putting limitations on the amount of people allowed in the building and the rate of growth of followers one judge has on TikTok, they decided to approve the live stream. The prosecution originally opposed the move, but now, after the widespread support of Chauvin's conviction, they have also changed their minds. They stated that there is no evidence to support the claim that witnesses won't testify on account of the live stream. They instead added that if the defense can't find anyone to testify for them, it's just a picture of their overwhelming guilt in the matter. They also suggested running a Tag a Friend giveaway, which, that might work. So as of now, the 3 former officers' trials will be on full display for the public. All 3 officers are scheduled to stand trial next March on charges of aiding and abetting both second-degree murder and manslaughter in Floyd's May 2020 death. So that about covers it. Until then, please give us a like and subscribe for covering whether or not they have coverage.
At least 9 deaths have been reported in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania as a result of record-high floods caused by Ida. Police reported that at least 8 were trapped in basement apartments as rapid flooding overtook the streets and living spaces. Another was a 70-year-old man whose car was swept away in the flooding. In New Orleans, the power outages and the heat are making it damn near impossible for those who stayed to ride it out, in addition to the flooding and the damage to their homes. The emergency infrastructure had been improved in areas after Katrina, and this time, the improved levee system kept neighborhoods safe from catastrophic flooding. Power to a few hospitals has reportedly been restored, but gas shortages are playing a role in disrupting emergency services. Ochsner Health is considering opening field hospitals to make critical services more accessible. According to the data coming in right now, about 44% of utility customers from New Orleans to Baton Rouge are without power. More than 600,000 people are without water. Officials have warned residents that the coming days will feel like the equivalent of 106 degrees with all the heat and humidity. Meanwhile, Mayor LaToya Cantrell has already opened stations for people to show up and get a meal and sit in air conditioning. When local residents were asked their thoughts on the heat, one man simply replied, "I am not a fan."
And finally, in Florida Man news, if you make the decision to go on a date with Florida Man, you should assume it's going to be, as the French say, lit. 22-year-old Florida man Taylor Beverly was taking a Florida woman on a first date over the weekend. Love was in the air and the couple was taking a romantic motorcycle ride. That was until Taylor ran a red light in front of a cop. Beverly, not about to be cop-blocked, sped off on his motorcycle at reported speeds of 100 miles an hour. He weaved in and out of traffic, taking risky high-speed turns while trying to simultaneously evade police and woo his passenger. He did not. Beverly was arrested and charged with a felony for fleeing police. He had hoped that love would prevail above arrest, as he explained to the cops that he was just trying to impress his date. When police asked Florida woman if she was impressed, she stated emphatically, "F no. A real man would have actually gotten away." I may have made that up, but she did say she was screaming at him to stop, and he wouldn't. So as it turns out, Beverly did indeed woke up a nub in all the wrong places, looking for dub. But he did add a felony to his growing list of accolades, which includes convictions for cocaine possession, grand theft, and passing a counterfeit check. It's tough out there in the dating world, but we hope this doesn't discourage Florida Man from putting his deranged, meth-induced heart out there and trying again. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as news you're getting already, and it's good to be back in America. As always, you can get 25% off Ranger Up when you use the code BNN. Have a great weekend.